to make sure we're being recorded live this evening, and I want to call the RTM Education Committee to order, and it's April 1st. It's about 7:35, and we're here to discuss the things on the agenda here. The first item on the agenda is to review the committee's questions and concerns on the 2019-2020 Board of Ed recommended budget. We're preparing for the meeting with the Board of Ed, which is next week, next Monday on April 8th. And I don't know if you all brought your questions. We had put together this list of questions from the our interaction with the Board of Ed during the Saturday meeting and thereafter. So there might be, I think there are some questions on here that have been eliminated because they've been answered. There might be others that you have that you would like to bring up or discuss. So would you like to start by talking about number one, the budget book? Does everybody want to keep that question?
Could you refresh our memories?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, the people thought the format isn't user-friendly. What's the best practice for a layout? How do other schools, districts?
Table. Just showing her.
Do you need something?
No.
Okay.
Maybe your budget book is.
No, she got hers.
Oh,
She's all
right,
set. So anyway, the folks would like more transparency so that the programs are better understood. And think that perhaps this would allow them to appreciate reasons for high costs. Also, more consistency is needed in the RCs. Some describe things in a very great detail,
Yeah.
Others do not. What was spent, actually spent on an annual basis, and what is in the budget is also something that people are interested in. I don't know that we need to go into this kind of detail other
Right.
than to say it's not user-friendly, like more transparency. We were talking earlier, we get the preliminary proposed superintendent's budget, and then we get this one,
Right.
and there's an awful lot of paper being used and time, and I was wondering if we might suggest that the Board of Ed, instead of giving each of us an individual copy of this one, might they like to put some on reserve in the library, and we can use it as we need it. I don't know. So does anybody, do you want to go along with this question, or do you want to add something to it?
My only comment is, what's most interesting to me is the last part that you mentioned, which is, we have actually actuals for the last 3 years, and we're discussing this year's. I'm sure we discussed the last 3 years similarly. And then, so the question I had last time, and I don't know if it was answered anywhere, is how does this budget, as approved, then differs from the actual? Which is the last part of this.
Yes, okay.
So, that's sort of, for me, the crux. Otherwise, I think it's actually pretty user-friendly.
Well, they do that like on a certain time basis.
Yeah.
You will get the actual versus budgeted, but it's in bits, and
Yeah.
to me, it's always been hard to have a real analysis of it. So I think that they could certainly work on being easier, but.
Whose question was it? Because when they says not user-friendly, because the book's easy and pretty self-explanatory, so there has to be something behind that question.
I don't know. This is a compilation of
Okay.
people who discussed this on that evening when we put this
Yeah,
together,
I
so
think
I
it
don't
was
know whose it was.
that some of the, like each of the RCs, the detail is not consistent from RC to RC.
Okay.
Some of them have not as much detail as others, so I think we were hoping. Some of the abbreviations are not in there, the explanations rather, so it's not.
So maybe we cite whoever questioned as specific examples to shorten up the question.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a committee question, right? It's not
It is.
any individual
Right, but
question, yeah.
I get that, but,
As opposed to saying like it's not user-friendly, it's not
Correct.
user-friendly.
Right, 'cause it is-
doesn't
it
have-
is-
I find that user-friendly.
yeah, I find it user-friendly
Would you
too.
want
I
to take
think.
that sentence out?
Sure.
Okay. So, they have these questions, the Board of Ed has these questions.
Right.
Right.
So it would be a matter of getting in touch with Tara Achman and saying, we've made some changes, and.
It's a
that would
revised
work
list
out.
of
Yeah.
questions.
So if you want to say, take out the part that says it's not user-friendly, are you still interested in how other DRGs present their budgets?
I don't know how the other DRGs present their budget.
What does DRG stand for
The
again?
DIRG.
The DIRGs, I think that the idea is,
Similar district.
Yeah, I sort of know.
you're asking, the idea is to ask the Board of Ed how.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep that question?
See if our reporting is consistent with other schools in the DIRG. I mean, for me, I'm with Peter. I'd like to see a more easily comparison, actual versus budgeted. That's always been my thing.
Yeah, so is there any way we can see that on one page? You know, maybe Mr. Feeney, is it, who is the, maybe he can click something and shoo, comes right down.
Right.
Okay.
When I've asked him about this before, the way they present it, there's so many columns. He's always said that
Right.
it's difficult to get it to be out that far, but.
Just want to welcome the folks who just came. If you haven't picked up your budget book, it
Oh,
looks like
they
this.
should sign in too.
There is, it's on the table, and also to let you know that we are being recorded and we are live this evening, so you know that. Okay, I tell you what would be helpful. Peter, if you, is that the way you pronounce your name?
Peter's
Okay,
okay.
okay. Would you like to send me a sentence that
Sure.
reflects, you know,
Sure.
what you want and exactly, maybe an
Thank you.
example?
Yep.
Okay. Are we kind of done with this one then? Okay. Enrollment, is this question still viable? Oh, some people don't have questions?
Yeah, I don't
I have to find that in my email.
I have mine
but-
here.
Oh,
What,
okay.
what email?
The
what's
email
date?
is
Would you like me
from
to read
January
the
15th, 2019.
Oh, okay, I can probably find it then.
I'm holding to it, that's okay, thank you.
Why not include a section on all K-12 students who live in Darien
Ah.
so that we see how many regular ed and special ed students attend magnet schools, private schools, or other public schools? Do you want to continue with asking that question?
Who's on the Clara?
Yes, I think so.
I think so too.
I think it's
yeah.
a very good original question that
Okay,
seems hard to believe that for so many years we haven't known that.
okay. All right, we'll keep that. Any revisions in the question? Okay. On the next one is a personnel question relating to page 15, which was in the old, I believe that was the old books, page 15. Can the administration provide a split of the $1.83 million increase requested for personnel into union contractual increases for existing personnel, new 4.6 FTE hires, and other non-contractual increases, discretionary bonuses, and that sort of thing? What's your-
That was
That's my
Peter's
question,
question, yeah.
And it's now 3.6, and it's 1.675 now. You know, there was some changes to the budget.
Okay,
Right.
yes, that's correct, because this is the new budget.
Correct.
All right, and did you want to keep this question?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
great.
all right. Just want to remind anybody who came in late, we are being recorded, and it is live this evening. Okay, so now we're on to RC 24, special ed. Does everybody have a copy now, or should I keep reading them?
I don't still have a copy.
You don't have, okay, I'll read it. Okay, what's driving the outplacement costs of nearly $7 million for outplacement? How has this changed over the past few years? That's one bullet point. And what's the tuition in public and private schools that students from Darien attend? There's quite a few bullet points here. So if you want to not ask any of these, why don't you stop me when I'm reading them off, okay? Or if you want to edit it in some way, okay? Want to keep those two?
I'm
We've
not
had-
sure the extent to which that information will be made public.
That
Right.
could be a consideration.
Yeah.
So do you think that, you want to let them tell us that?
Sure.
Okay.
Is that are you referring to the first part?
The first two
First
bullet
two,
points.
okay, right.
Yep.
All
No,
right.
specifically, what are the tuitions paid?
Yes.
I can see how that might be
That could identify someone.
a problem, yeah.
Okay, so we'll be aware that they could want to skip this.
There are other boards of ed that do provide that.
Yes, we went through this
Oh, that's
last year.
right, somebody, yeah.
You got all that information.
From Fairfield,
Talked about
yeah.
that. All right, what would be a scenario in which a unilateral placement in which a parent pays part of the cost, the district pays part of the cost? Some detail will allow us to know whether this number may be reduced versus seeing it as an ongoing expense carried by the school budget. I suppose this could fall under the category of not wanting to
Yeah, no,
reveal it.
I suspect they're not going to want to give us
But
that
I think you
information.
should ask them, they have it.
Okay.
I think it should still be asked, because we ask it every year now, right,
Okay.
Janet?
I was, I wouldn't, I think that's one I could eliminate, just
All
for
right.
some,
Yeah.
it's too complicated and they probably won't answer it. And
Well,
just raising it is helpful, I
It's
think.
very specific,
Yes,
so, yeah.
Okay, so
and
we're
it's
gonna,
it's so new to so many people, that the title that you just gave.
So you
it.
don't even want to raise it, even if they don't answer?
Well, if we're planning on eliminating one, that would not be one I would vote for, but it's okay. to
Wait,
keep
you would
it in-
vote to eliminate it or vote not to? I'm confused.
Eliminate it.
Okay.
okay. Sheila,
But-
did you have, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if that's the question I asked before. When we saw so many outplays, I think it was approaching 100, that was shared between the parent and the district. We don't know why it's split. We don't know if the district agrees that the child should be outplaced, and if so, then why aren't we paying the whole thing? But if a lot of them are just learning disabled, I mean, something that we could handle in the district, then why are they out? So I see a lot of questions around this.
You think that, is there a simpler way of stating it? I mean, just to remind you, we have already given them these questions, so what we're
I
just
know.
doing is reacquainting ourselves and just looking at them a second time. And so do you think there's a simpler way of saying this? Or do you think it's possible that this is another situation?
Do you
where-
want to see the way it's written?
I think
If
that's
that's
what
right,
I was
just
saying, that
turn,
maybe we
sorry.
should say it more simply. Because I think it's a big news item that there are some that are generated by parents.
Because
We're
the way
getting
it's,
used to
the
that.
way it's written, it seems like it's not inappropriate to say it the way you have it written.
Just say it again.
Read
The
this
question,
again.
yeah.
What would be a scenario in a unilateral placement in which a parent pays part of the cost and the district pays part? Then the rationale, some detail will allow us to know whether this number might be reduced versus seeing it as an ongoing expense carried in the school budget. I guess my experience is that I don't know that we would be giving advice on whether the number could be reduced. I mean, that's.
No.
I mean, the ultimate, if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the underlying thing here is what causes those students to be outplaced? Is it something that we can handle, could potentially handle in district?
Yes.
I mean, that's really what you're trying to get at?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know how to rephrase it other than,
But by definition, are we not then simply second guessing the Board of Ed?
right, right.
Because by
No, you can
definition,
ask them a
if they are
question.
outplacing them, have they not drawn the conclusion?
It is
that
a
we
legal
cannot-
Probably after a lengthy legal,
Yeah, yeah.
negotiation as well.
But she's just asking for a scenario, what that scenario would be. I think that's a reasonable request to know what that is.
It is 6.7 million on expense.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a big
Should be-
expense.
Well, that encompasses all outplacements, the
Correct.
7 million, yeah.
Not, yes.
I mean, and if it's something that they can't discuss, they'll just say.
They'll tell.
They'll tell us, okay.
We're not asking names.
Right, exactly.
No, but I suppose if someone were to describe a scenario that could be related to
A certain
an
individual.
individual.
Well, they could make up a hypothetical one to give us a better
Yeah.
understanding.
And some of them are very severely medically challenged, let us say, and there's really no debating it. Of course, we can't.
Right.
do
Well, I
it
think
here.
the thrust here is the like where the parents are the ones that
Yeah.
are the push agent in this, right? And I can be wrong, but we've sat in many of the Board of Ed meetings where Shirley has talked about that they look at economies of scale, and if they have, a base of children that are out there because, plug in a word, dyslexia,
Speech or
whatever, that they could potentially get a teacher force and aid force that could handle them in district, which would be much less expensive. And they say they look at that frequently.
That is my understanding. It's very expensive to have children outplaced. It's also, I believe the arrangements for 2 years, correct me if I'm wrong, they're 2 years, each of the arrangements. And they are looked at every time they come up for renewal, they are looked at.
Okay. So what's the final verdict here? Wanna keep this?
I guess why don't people read it when they see it maybe tomorrow and email you changes?
Okay. You want to do that?
Could I send you simpler wording?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I just wanted to remind the folks who just came from the Rules Committee, we're being recorded this evening and it is live. And also if you need to pick up your budget book, it's on the table over there. We're going through the questions at this point and we are on the second page to bring the questions.
Do you have a copy of those?
No, but they're in your email, January 19th,
Oh, I
if
do.
you have your
Okay.
phone.
Yep, I do. Thank you.
Yeah, January 19th.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so we're on the second page, the second bullet point. Other districts provide specific information on schools attended by outplaced students. Would Darien provide this? And in parentheses, there was some disagreement when this was first discussed over whether specific school information should be made available.
What sort of information, specific information?
The names of outplaced schools.
Just
where
the
they
school,
go,
The
and-
school,
and-
not the person.
Not the person, no, not at all. The school, and then, the bullet point above was the tuition being paid to that school.
Right.
How
So
many
it's,
students?
those are to kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Are you all okay with this question? Okay. This third bullet point may have some relation to the first one. Referencing responses to board questions, chart A1 out of district, is there a strategy for improving in-house
No.
services for students with learning disabled dyslexia so that they will be served in Darien? If Darien improved these services, would there be fewer outplacements?
Yeah.
That's
It's all around the same.
kind of the
That's more
same
clear.
thing.
Right.
Maybe we should scratch that.
Maybe that's better
Yeah,
instead of
they-
saying create a scenario.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we'll
Have they
cross
done
out
a
that as
cost
well.
benefit analysis?
Okay, all right, and I guess if somebody wanted to add to this one, something about, the situation in which the parent pays and the student, and the school pays, maybe that would go with this one. Okay. Describe a continuum of services. What is the progression of a student through these services? Does that sound reasonable? Like that, okay. What is the outplacement cost per child, and is it necessary to have 6 special ed secretaries? Are you okay with those questions?
I don't describe the continuum of services. I think that the special ed presentation that Shirley did pretty much does that.
Yes.
I don't think we
Yes.
need that question, but
Okay. You all okay with dropping that question?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that the one about the secretary too?
No, there
No.
are 3 different things. The secretary was the last bullet point here. Is it necessary to have 6 special ed secretaries?
and I think what is the out,
in each school?
I don't know.
No, in
I
the
think
central
they're in
office.
central office.
Yeah, but they're all in the central office,
I
or are
think-
they all?
no, they're all around.
They're in schools? Okay.
And what is the outplacement cost per child? I don't think we're going to get that,
No,
but
I don't think so. Do you want to drop that one?
Nope.
That would
Nope.
be varied.
Okay.
When you say outplacement cost per child, are you talking just about an overall coverage? Because you can figure that out yourself.
right.
Okay, these were questions that the committee came up with the last time we met, so we can cross this out if you think the question has been answered.
You can say average course over time, right? You still can calculate it, but it points to the, to the increase in cost.
Over time?
You mean per outplaced child, not per child in
It
district?
I would imagine it would vary greatly between
Correct.
Right.
children,
Massively.
depending on their needs.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, that's why I think it's important that every year, we should not have to ask how many children are outplaced. Every year, we have to ask that question. That number should automatically be in our enrollment numbers. They are enrolled children. They count. Even though they're not in our buildings, they count in our enrollment numbers. And the district has to start including that every year without us asking the question.
They're in the budget, correct?
No, they're not. They're not in the enrollment numbers.
No, they are accounted for in the special ed budget.
Cost is-
Yes, I know, I get
Correct.
that, but they're not accounted in our enrollment numbers as a district. And other towns do that because
Got it.
we are paying for them, so they are students in the district.
Correct.
Okay.
Is so the whole number of students in
Yes,
it
when they
doesn't
give
have
us
them
the whole
inside?
number of children in the district, ELP through 12, they need to give us the outplaced number as well because they are a budgetary part of the district.
Right, before you came, we do have an enrollment question about why not include a section on all K-12 students who live in Darien, seeing how many regular ed or special ed attend magnet, private or public
Yes,
schools.
exactly. So yes, including the
that's-
magnet kids, yes.
Takes care of that question, okay. So did we decide to take out the cost per child, or you want to put in overtime and that'll be okay?
Are we asking for a breakdown of the actual cost per child or an average? What's,
And-
On average.
And how would have to be an average,
Yes,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of pointless, but,
because that
I do too.
we can make an average.
right.
Yeah.
Is
I'm
there an
just looking-
average by
Well, not over
disability?
time.
Let's try one of
Maybe
these.
that
Right.
would be interesting.
Okay.
Average by disability, maybe?
I don't think we're going to get that, but that's an interesting thought.
I think Curtis had a question, so let's.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm just thinking about the end of the last question about if we were to develop in-house services for children with learning disabilities or dyslexia, would we have fewer outplacements? I think the answer is obviously yes.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's necessarily the question. But perhaps is it under consideration to develop an in-house program that could substitute some of the outplacement services? Maybe that's what we're looking for. Because if we ask them, if they improve the services, we have fewer outplacements by definition, yes.
So instead of this one that's fourth from the bottom, the question would say, is it under consideration to develop in-house services for students with learning disabled dyslexia? Is that what you're
That would
asking?
be where I would go.
That would be because you think that this other question is a little funny. Okay.
It goes without saying.
Yeah.
Well, that is the goal, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
We don't know if that's the goal, actually.
Well,
because
I
they're-
mean, I think that's the goal of our questions.
Yeah, historically speaking, they've made explicit decisions, we are not gonna develop this capability in-house, and we're gonna bear the cost.
Because what if it's cheaper to actually bear the cost of outplacement than building the program?
Yeah,
We don't know.
yeah, like
We don't know.
Yeah.
Are
so it
students
depends on the
outplaced for
disability.
dyslexia?
It depends on the disability.
Are we outplacing?
Are
It
they
depends on the
outplaced for
disability.
dyslexia?
Yes, I think
only?
depending
There's all
on the
different kinds.
severity too, yeah.
They did come out with a list of different kinds of disabilities they were trying to quantify.
I think at the end of the day, it's the parent's choice. If
No,
they-
it's not.
The dyslexic kids, I think it's.
It is, if they are outplaced and the district is paying for it, it is a legal decision that is, so they sit down with the district, absolutely. I mean, sometimes we don't have the facilities,
Yeah.
you know.
Or they're multiple,
Right.
more usually.
They're, correct, they're not, that's not the only disability usually.
Okay, so is everybody okay with the suggestion by Curtis that we change the wording of that question that starts with
Combine those
referencing?
two.
Yes.
Sure.
Everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we are done with this. Does anybody have any other questions that they'd like to add to this section? No? Oh, is that a no? Okay. All right, the next one was for RC1, Darien High School. I think that this might have been addressed. Concern was expressed over funds allotted to the substitute account. The rate per diem has increased. Do you think that that question is still worth asking?
I think it's been answered.
I think so too.
I think so.
Okay. How does the voucher system work? What is the voucher system?
What is the, yeah, what is the
I think it should be asked if nobody in this committee knows
think
what
we
it is.
must
I
have
know
known.
what it is. It's paying teachers to cover when there's not a substitute.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
the
that's
new,
what
the new
Ellen said
system.
they're doing, and that's why some of the, Ellen said that's exactly what's happening at the high schools, that they're
Yes.
using teachers to cover for other teachers.
Yes.
And that's why some of those numbers have gone up. I didn't realize that's what.
Right, because they weren't contractually obligated to
Right.
pay them, and now they
I think it was
are.
part of the teacher's contract,
It
and how
is,
they would
yeah.
get paid to cover those
Correct.
classes.
But I think it would be helpful to just have people learn what the voucher system is.
Yeah, I think that the question should be, what is it,
Because
and
it's
then how
quite
does it
new
work?
that their vouchers are used as much as they are, so I am told.
Okay, so we're gonna keep this.
Yeah.
Okay. What prompts a teacher to cover another teacher's classes? That's the same thing, I think.
Right,
Is it the
yes.
teacher's choice or the administration, so they don't have to hire a substitute? What is the impact of a teacher having to give up a planning period? Which sounds like a reasonable question. Sorry.
Yes.
Everybody okay with that? All right. But we'll maybe make that one question though, okay?
Right.
Has the school climate survey been done lately? That was,
I,
no, I'm not asking you, I'm just, that's
No,
one
no,
of the
no, I'm
questions.
saying, I haven't heard anything about that I remember.
That would be a good question.
Okay, everybody agree to keep that?
These days.
Okay, what are the, yeah,
Aren't they done regularly?
there's room up here.
Barbara, aren't school climate surveys done regularly?
I do not know that. They're done every 10 years, for sure, as part of the
I
evaluation.
thought they were done every year.
What is a school climate survey?
Teachers, a survey is distributed and the teachers respond to it. And it's about the
What it
climate of
feels
the school with
Okay.
many questions.
It's not about climate change.
No.
Satisfaction with many things.
Okay.
All right, well,
And
we're
it's
keeping
just,
this.
it just goes to teachers, not students?
Yeah, just teachers.
I think it went.
It just goes to teachers?
It was a
I
few
don't know,
years ago.
I don't know that.
No, I think it went to students. It was a few years ago that we did it. I don't know.
Well, how about
long
if we
ago.
ask that?
Well, that would
Sure.
be for a
Let's
different
ask about
purpose.
that whole thing.
Sure.
See what they say.
I believe
Weren't
this
there
came up.
surveys like that when you were teaching?
No. that I can
They might be
remember.
new.
Every 10
I
years.
want to say
yeah.
2016 would be one.
Okay. What are the components of student activity funds? How much is supplies? How much is salary? Okay with that
You
question?
mean stipends?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I was gonna say not
because-
salary, yeah.
Okay,
That's a good
keep
question.
that?
Yeah, sure.
You all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's the end of Darien High School. Is
Right.
there any other question that you'd like to
I
add?
do have a question for you. This is a $13.5 million responsibility center, and we have a notable budget line item changes. We have 2 line items.
Where are you?
I'm still in high school. They're asking for $500,000 more in money, and they explain it in 2 line items. It's just, I don't think the description of the changes has either been submitted or prepared. It just seems like it's been cut off for some reason in both budgets. I thought they're actually gonna add it here.
Peter, can you tell us which,
Tell us the page.
Page what? Page
RC1?
21. Page 21.
okay.
Right. Page 21, it describes $3,000 change is the only explanation we have for the 551 or 555,000 change asked. So if we could respectfully ask them to actually provide us some explanations on these changes. Some of it is actually contractual changes in salaries.
Right.
But then there's, you have 5.5% changes in science teachers, right? Without, there's some 5%.
There's an explanation for that one. The science teacher.
So
On 21?
21 doesn't have an explanation. Yeah, so, but it may be,
Teaching supplies, not teacher.
I will tell you, the science teacher explanation is in like October or like pretty early into the school year. One of the new science teachers, a young science teacher, ended up being let go. And she was replaced by a far more experienced teacher with a higher step up, so the salary is higher. So that's the weird science line.
I think that when we were first talking about the budget book format, we said it's inconsistent because sometimes there's a 2-sentence explanation and sometimes it's a long one. And I think, that would sort of go to that statement there that it's not consistent when, you look for an explanation and in one case, there's a very small one. So let's keep the question, okay? And if, when we're talking to the Board of Ed, you have to chime in with something a little more specific.
yeah, sure.
that
I mean, I
would
don't
be
form
good.
over substance, but, this is,
Okay.
it's just insufficient.
Okay. All right, and I'll make some revisions and get this out to you. Okay, so if we go on, is there anything else that you'd like to ask about the high school? Any other concerns? If we go on to the elementary school RCs, we've had, since we put this together, a lot of presentations about psychologists. And so I would say that we don't necessarily need all of these questions. Would you like to consider taking out some of them?
Well, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the first one can be
Yeah.
gotten rid of.
How about the second one?
Yes, I
Okay.
think.
And so you're all looking at them now, is there anybody who doesn't have them? Okay. The third one, how much time is spent in PPTs?
I
How
think-
much is,
Yeah, I think they've gone through all of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay,
Do we need 4 psychologists or can we?
I'm looking to where it came in. I got it. I can't remember where I can't find it. Okay, go.
Mine is January 14th, actually, not 19th. They-
Get mine to go back.
That question about
Thank you.
the second part of the question, how much time is spent in PPTs, the second part of that is a little bit inflammatory. I would probably pull that out.
how much is being spent helping children in need who are not in special ed?
Just
That's the
just
part?
that generic question, yeah, that's,
Okay.
I would be rather insulted by that or upset by that if I saw that question.
Do you want to keep the part that says how much time is spent in PPTs, or you want to drop the whole question?
They
I think-
gave such a
They,
clear
yeah, they
presentation.
really gave a very
Yeah,
clear
I don't
presentation
think
about
we need
this.
any of that.
Okay, the next one that's on the next page, might a teacher and a psychologist meet with the board? I think we
Yeah,
They
they
did
did
that.
They did that.
did that. And a new superintendent have a different approach. I think they kind of said that if
Yeah.
the board owns this, the Board of Ed owns this. It's not the superintendent. So I think this question, unless, if somebody disagrees, please speak up, okay? So we'll drop that one. Then this is an elementary question that is not related to the psychologist. The substitute account is up in some schools, Tokenique and Holmes. Want to keep that?
They did, remember, rejigger some of the sub-costs because they were in the wrong schools.
Yeah, okay.
But I can't tell you that they're, equal or reasonably equal.
So maybe we'll
It was
keep
the
that.
14th, I don't know why mine says
Are you finding, do you need?
Yep, you found it.
She got it.
I need a lot of help.
Oh, it's okay, no, we'd like to hear from you.
No, we're good.
Okay, and then the next question, or the last one here, another student activity
It's the
question.
same as the high school.
Yeah, same as the high
Yeah.
school.
You want to keep that?
Um,
You wanna keep-
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep it, see what they say. Okay, does anyone want to ask any other questions about the elementary schools? Okay, the next one is athletics. Everybody likes to talk about that. Committee is concerned that the deep dive was not as, what?
Wasn't deep enough.
It wasn't deep enough? Okay, and we're looking for more information on how much the district pays per sport, how much is from other sources such as DAF, the Booster Club, et cetera. The 2018-19 budget grid included information on non-district funds. Are you okay with this?
I am.
Just to mention to you that the meeting is being recorded and shown live, just so you
Okay.
know. Are you okay with this first bullet point? Okay, second one, committee is questioning a number of players on each team versus the number of coaches, dollars spent per sport, and the cut policy. I mean, this is not an absolute budget question, but certainly we could ask it. Here. Do you want to keep this question?
I mean, it's not a question, right?
No, it's a statement. And there's nothing wrong with making statements, so if you want
Right.
to do that, instead of asking a question that, isn't going to be answered. Is there an equitable distribution of funds for equipment, and how do you ensure this?
I think that's a good question, actually.
Okay, you like that? Okay. What is the communication process and decision-making process when new or replacement equipment is needed after the season begins? This stems from a question about somebody's equipment falling apart, so.
Being held together with duct tape, yes.
Somebody.
Good times.
All right, so we're going to keep that. The relationship between the Board of Ed and the DAF. Does the district apply to DAF for grants, or does DAF suggest projects to the district?
Great question.
I mean, we asked some of these questions, right, last
That one
year,
was
and
answered.
they never got answered. What?
That one was answered.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the answer?
Yeah, what's the answer?
My recollection was that there isn't any specific relationship, and that the DAF comes in with ideas, but there's, if you're on one board and I'm on another board and we have a conversation, that's how some of this stuff was being passed. That's at least what I recall, because this has come up.
That would
more than
make
once.
sense.
I
That would
recall
make
about the
sense.
DAF doing the choosing of what projects to.
Yeah.
See, that's
Yeah.
what I thought, and then I thought, well, does the Board of Ed ever go to them and say,
For
The
the
Board-
Board of Ed.
the Board of Ed
it's
does not.
public. Like, we would know, because it'd be on video.
Yeah.
when they
The
went.
Board of Ed is not the conduit for that.
pardon me?
The Board of Ed is not the conduit for those questions.
It's not, okay. So you're saying, Ed says the question has been answered, do you want to drop it, or do you want to keep it in
No,
some?
It's a fair question, it raises an issue, and they can think about it.
I just thought it was answered, but
No,
I mean,
it's
I'm not
okay.
saying
All right.
don't ask it, I'm just,
It's a process question.
Okay, well,
Yes.
maybe we can think of a better way of saying it. The next bullet point, we should have an overall strategy in place to cover costs such as ice hockey. There was an awful lot of conversation about
Yes, there
ice
was.
hockey and also swimming and
Diving.
Diving.
Okay. Do you think that this is a question that you want to continue having there? or-
I mean, do we want to make it to cover, sports that cost?
Out-of-pocket costs for parents.
I'm sorry, what?
The out-of-pocket
The
costs
out-of-pocket
for
costs for
parents
parents,
are
yeah.
not
It's
equitable.
not
for
equitable
they're
right
not
now for
equitable
Right.
sports, and I think Dennis and Krista proposed like making it more equitable, where we would cover X percentage.
Correct.
He
to
wanted
parent
anything that wasn't covered 50%
Right.
by the school.
Right.
That was the
Right, but that
proposal.
didn't make it, right?
Correct.
Okay. But the
But we
last,
do want that information. What are parents paying out of pocket for each sport?
Or what percent are they?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have those numbers. I think
they-
it becomes more of a question of like, for next year, what are you going to do? Because we can't keep
We need to
going
keep
in a
asking the
circle.
question, correct.
did you want to say something, Ed?
no, I thought they did provide that information in a board meeting. We had it here.
Yeah.
Like, there was a
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
schedule.
gonna look.
given the information, I think the next step is, which got shut down, was what are we gonna do going forward?
Yes,
to
I
make
think
it
that's
equitable
more,
for
yeah.
those sports.
Yeah, I mean,
And
here's
when it
the,
got shut down, the answer is
They got
nothing.
shut down this time.
well, the last
There's
bullet
always
point,
next year.
the last
The
bullet
point
point
is, I
here.
think, to keep it in the conversation.
Right, the last bullet point here, is it the board's goal to have equity in what parents pay for athletics?
Maybe that should be
That
where
is
we
a good-
start,
that is
a
okay,
good-
and not do this other one, okay? All right.
Well, and how does that change the athletic program? Because some, you know, it's really cheaper to run track.
But we're building a new track so that they
Oh,
don't run
that's
around.
true.
So the DAF is building
Yeah,
a
we're
track.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, you don't have to worry about that.
All right, that's the end of athletics. Do you want to add anything or clarify anything that's here? No? Anybody? Okay. All right, the next one is about maintenance. I don't know how many of you went on the tour of the schools. This relates to line item 470, security. Should we be spending more? This is something that the board does address, but not always publicly. So I, tread lightly here, but if you have questions about maintenance, please let me know if you don't think that this is enough. Yes?
I don't think we should be asking them if they should be spending more. If they thought they needed it, they would spend it.
Okay.
And the line item is 479.
Yeah, they would.
It's 470.
They would ask for it.
So where can I get information about this? I appreciate there's gonna be some privacy about it, but I am concerned, right? We have kids in school system, whether it is the appropriate amount. I know I have to trust the people in charge that they are spending enough, but there's gotta be some way to convey whether we are on par with other private public schools.
I think we're ahead of other schools.
Yeah,
In the conversations that I've had, but you should ask, and maybe if that's something like, everybody wants to know, because whenever you bring it up, they say they can't discuss
Yeah,
it.
didn't they say they're willing to make presentations at the police station? to
Yeah,
small
that was
groups
gonna
of
say, you
RTM
could
members?
go to the police.
Yes,
and
they
would
have
tell
But
you
not,
what
this
to
is
do.
not something you want out in the public.
Right.
This is where we put the cameras.
Okay, just one conversation at a time.
Active shooter
No.
drilling?
Yeah, that's just active shooter drill.
That's active shooter drilling, the RTM, that goes to the police.
Yeah, that's different.
so I don't know what's the best way, this is probably not the forum, but again, right, it's a board of ed that makes these decisions, how much to
Police
spend. So
department.
if they can point me to have a conversation with somebody, or on some kind of level,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But
I
the
remember
security
this
of the kids
question a
is
couple
very
years
important.
ago, and Dr. Brenner said that he would be willing to talk to parents kind of on a one-off, that he doesn't want to publicly explain his security strategy.
Yeah.
That's what I think you
Great.
should do.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll bring that up
Yeah.
and see what they can do to
Perfect.
make people feel
Right, and if
comfortable.
somebody wants to know, where should we send them?
Right.
Who should they
Right,
send?
that's the question we will ask. Okay, I don't know, this says music, the piano was moved to Capitol, so that's not really a question.
Right.
And technology, RC 15, what are the annual maintenance costs for the iPads for the high school? What are the replacement costs?
It should be a line item.
Didn't
What
we
should
see
they-
that though in the technology
I thought so.
presentation?
Yeah, that
I
should be.
think we also,
It's in there.
Yeah, I think we saw that.
but I recall
Because
seeing
this
this in
was
the
a
technology
last year number
presentation.
too.
And the
So
replacement.
there's
cost
not
and all that
detail, that's the
stuff.
problem. But I feel like it was in one of the technology presentations.
You think the question's been answered?
Well, I think the detail is not in this book, but it has been presented.
Yeah, and
Alright.
it's been presented.
How about if I look for
That
it?
sounds great. It might be in one of the agenda
Yeah.
Yeah.
attachments.
All right, RC 16, what does this account cover? Administration, where is the FOI log? Is it public? Someone ask this?
Is that public? Didn't they make it though?
I think they did.
believe
I think
it's
they
public,
did.
yeah.
It is public? It's the
Mhm.
question, how can I look at it? Is that really what people want to know? What do I have to do, see it?
I
Well,
think
where
you-
is
I think you
it?
just have to ask the board of it. I think they do keep that log.
Okay.
Maybe it's with the secretary.
Correct, I think so. Something like that.
It is pretty
Um,
self-explanatory, what does it cover, superintendent,
Yeah,
secretary?
yeah, I think that's pretty.
I don't think we need that.
RC, anything else here? Does anybody want to ask a different question?
Do we need to ask the question? Do we
Pardon
feel
me?
like- Do we need to ask the question if we feel like it's been answered here, or no?
No, we're going to take off the what
Yeah.
does the account cover? And then if you have anything else you'd like to ask about administration, put that down. Okay. The next one is RC 19 curriculum. How many of the 16.75 personnel listed are administrators only? And how many are student facing? How much time do the 16.5 people spend with students?
That was my question. That's my question, and maybe it stems from my ignorance about the topic, but if I look at RC19, 2.6 million, 2.4 million, then I add page 100, which is curriculum supervision, which is in addition to the curriculum, we have 33 people and $5 million in the budget, curriculum and curriculum supervision. And, you know, I don't know if that's, it just seems like a huge number for me. And I just would like to understand whether it's all necessary, whether it's, you know, it comes down to the philosophy of should it be the teacher deciding the curriculum or should it be somebody, not a teacher, and that's where this question comes from, right? How out of these 33 people actually are student facing, right? And
Well, the curriculum supervisors are all,
teachers,
they're all teachers, but they are supervising the teachers of those subjects
right?
through at the high school
Do
and
they
the
teach
middle
as
school.
well?
They teach
I think that's
a little bit.
0.4.
That's
They're
changing, that's
yeah.
changing.
They're gonna change that.
They will.
Just-
Okay, sorry.
I mean, I
They're gonna
recall
remove
it
that.
being a selling point when we
Correct.
approved it.
Correct.
The fire,
And I
Correct.
guess
Selling point that they will or will not?
that they will.
Right.
But they will not
I guess
any
there
longer.
was a return policy.
I thought that got rejected.
Now they're not.
No.
Well, I think that the argument that was made for returning that was that the children who had a department head as their teacher were not getting as much access to that teacher for office hours because they were so busy doing the administrative stuff.
And I'm not saying it was a wrong, I don't know why, it couldn't have been better planning, but this would have been the presentation of what we were
Right,
gonna do,
right.
but
This is a big budget item, and I see in the curriculum, I see there are 2 program coordinators, $300,000 for 33 people. Do we need, you know, we have assistant superintendent, do we need additional 2 people? Maybe it's a direct conversation with the, you know, assistant superintendent, but I just wonder how the Board of Education
So
thought about
can I
it.
give you why they put department heads in? Because there's a whole backstory to why we have department heads. There was just a lot of inconsistency between going from elementary to middle school, from middle school to high school. There was a lot of inconsistency within the middle school among English teachers teaching different kids on different teams. And, you know, a child going from the middle school to high school shouldn't be more prepared because they were on the green team. And parents were starting to complain, and a lot of it was because there wasn't this oversight of the departments by somebody who's familiar with the subject area. Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense to
It
me.
was also
I just-
within the high
But
school
we're still
sections of the
top-heavy.
same subject.
Yeah,
how you
you
look
can
at
have,
it,
you
we're
could
top
be, you know,
heavy.
you could be in a geometry class and you have, you know, 4 different teachers teaching completely different things. And then,
But students are different, right? Some
no,
students.
but you have to have the same curriculum. You've got to end, when June 15th
take those
comes,
exams.
every kid who took geometry has to have learned the same.
I think you have to end with the same point, but
Right.
how you get there
That
is
wasn't
different.
happening. But that wasn't happening.
Okay.
Well, I think there's some support for keeping the question, maybe making it a little more specific with the information that you just gave. And we don't need to hear about why they have curriculum heads. We just need to see the numbers add up a little better, right? Is that what you're saying?
I don't
In
think
other
we should
words,
call them curriculum heads. I think we should call them department heads.
Department heads, I'm sorry, okay.
Well, they do call them curriculum supervisors in the
That's
budget.
different, that's
because
different.
that's
There's
a
16
different
people who are, you know, curriculum supervision, and then there's actually program coordinators, 2 people program coordinators. You know, I mean.
That's
Yeah.
probably like the
People-
math person and
That
then.
is,
yeah,
yeah.
we're
Those are
top
probably
heavy.
the elementary
Top
people.
heavy.
Yeah, that might be what that is. But I think if your message is, it's a little administration heavy, and you're concerned about it, and you want to know about how many people are administrators and how many people, and do they have student contact, I think that's a reasonable thing.
Closer they are to the students, I always think that people make better decisions in every job they do, right? If you're closer to the actual work, you know more about it. And if you have 16 people supervising, it just seems a lot. Anyway, just
Okay.
No,
bring
and actually, that
discussion.
does seem like a large number. So I wonder how much of that number is support staff to the department.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because that is a really large number, when you think about it.
The department has 17 people on their own,
Right.
so it's 33 in total. 5 million,
Well,
anyway.
it might
$5
also
million
go
budget, right? Sorry.
to, no, you go ahead.
That's it.
You're okay, it might also be more clarity in the budget, you know,
Right,
it might
like
be
that,
that
what
kind
is
of
it, like,
question
what,
too.
Because there
Why
were
don't we
6
ask
department
them
heads
to
for 6
explain
through
it?
12. And then there are There's one for math and science at the elementary level, and then one for language at the elementary level, so that's 8. So then, yeah, where are those other people is a good
Well, and then you
question.
have to coordinate with the middle school because the kids have to know how they get to.
No, but
That's
the
great.
department heads are 6 through 12, so that is the
Oh,
middle
right.
school.
Right.
Okay.
Let's ask them to explain it to us.
Okay, we will do that.
Maybe that way.
Does anyone want to ask another question about the RC19?
Can I ask one general question?
Yeah.
You provide these questions to Board of Education, you sit down with them. Is the superintendent and assistant superintendent present at the meeting?
I think that they try to have as many as possible. I don't know if
Perfect.
everybody
I
from
don't
Board of
know.
Ed is coming, but I think it's a pretty robust group.
Great.
And we can also ask questions as they're talking. You know, we want to give them this because they have it and we want to make some revisions, but if you want them to explain something better or something while they're talking, you can do that. It doesn't mean you
I don't know that the administration is there.
I think that
They are?
They do
the
come
superintendent comes.
to
Okay.
something.
I don't know
Brenner
that the-
clean.
But I'm thinking, like, I don't think the assistant superintendent's, I'm not sure.
I don't think, no,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think Brenner has been here for the questions, but not.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
I think it depends. I
But
mean,
they
I've
should have
seen
the
them, but I don't know that they absolutely come all the time.
Yeah.
And, okay, how about, any other questions about this? All right, and the next one is a finance question, RC20. What would be the cost for open.gov? OpenGov?
Leave that.
Leave that,
Yes,
okay?
please.
Summer school, I
The
just,
better
we
question
still-
is why isn't the board?
Yeah, that's what I think. Why are they so optimistic?
I think this question has been asked from other town boards. No, I mean, I heard the Board of Finance asking it. RC23 summer school, where's the revenue detail for this? Is that something that we
Didn't
could
they
find?
present that though?
We've
Yeah.
seen that.
I think
Yeah.
they presented that.
That's in,
In one of the,
it is, it's-
yeah,
Yeah.
It's here.
Here's the revenue.
yeah.
Okay. Are there any other summer school questions? All right. Anybody else?
But that question can get added back, excuse me, to the budget book, and the RC's not having all the detail. Maybe that could be an example.
What, I missed the first part of what you said.
I said this question at the bottom, now I lost it.
the summer school revenue detail.
The one
But
that-
it's
Revenue
here.
detail for summer school?
Yeah.
There's a total
Yeah.
number, we don't detail on.
All right, so there's no detail on it.
Oh.
Would that serve as an example of the question that we had at the beginning that we're discussing earlier?
But not clear?
Yes, about the book not being clear.
Okay, I'll put that down.
Only if everybody else thinks that is a good example. Maybe it's not.
What do you think?
I mean, the summer school is pretty straightforward.
Straightforward, all right.
Okay. So you think that we
Forget
may
it
use
then.
this as an example, or do we have other examples?
Sure.
I mean-
Do the children who go to summer school that have to go in order to graduate and so forth, do their parents have to pay for it?
What do you mean by
The ESY, extended school year?
extended school year? I don't think they did.
I don't think they
Or are you
do.
asking to make up a class that you
Yeah,
failed?
for instance,
Ted?
not
To
going
make
to
a
the
question, I think
gym.
you had.
If you
Yeah,
have
I don't see why you wouldn't
Yeah,
pay.
you should.
But if you're in special ed and you do the extended school year, I don't think they
Correct.
pay, they don't
But
pay
there's
for
so
that.
many classes that they offer.
That's
that
not what
kids
I
have to
meant,
take.
just
Correct, yeah.
the students that haven't
Haven't passed them.
passed gym, for instance, have to take gym in the summer. I just wondered if their parents have to pay for
Great
that.
question.
I would expect, but we can certainly ask.
I
That's
guess-
an old
Both the
question.
gym
It's not-
class, because clearly it's a thing.
It is a thing.
You can get stuck with that, I know
Yes.
that.
I think
Yeah,
that's
it can be
right.
an
I don't know that I've ever heard
unpleasant
that. I
situation
think
at the
that's-
end.
Oh, no, I've heard about having to go to a bunch of gym classes to
I
graduate.
don't know that
Yeah.
I've ever heard that. I think
Oh,
that's awesome.
yeah. Yes, yes.
Or is it the kids who didn't go to gym classes? Because I
Right.
think that is a thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
I know a kid that got tutored.
Okay.
In
all right.
gym?
Let's get back on the
Well,
track.
it's just the point that they have to pay, the parents have to pay when they look,
How would you like
when
that
they
one?
say it's
But
self-sufficient.
not.
Okay, all right. Any other
Better pay.
questions?
No.
What else do we have here? Transportation costs are not clear in RC 25. Fixed.
You mean is this the contract with First Student?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean,
I think-
somebody asked this question 2 months ago, so I don't know if it's still relevant or not, so that's why we're doing this.
Sure.
Want to keep it?
Sure.
Okay. Some questions on the early learning program. More information on the 5-day program, including Fridays. There was a discussion at the Saturday presentation. I guess the board was surprised to learn that there was a Friday class and.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
They have, I mean, they have talked about it a lot.
So do you think you want to keep this question?
I
know
think
that
it's
we
been
have it.
answered.
I think it's been answered. yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and St. Luke's preschool was not on the list, but that's not relevant. Okay, the capital budget, people wanted to know more about the bidding process.
I mean, Mr.
Yeah.
Lynch has talked about that.
Yeah, it's come up.
So is it, yeah, I mean, if it's been
There's a
answered,
process.
there's
There
a
is a
process,
But I mean,
3 bidders.
They maybe didn't hear it the last time, but, I mean, ask it again. I
think Mr.
can't
Lynch
tell
has
you
talked
what.
about it.
I mean, I remember asking him on the facilities tour last year,
Yeah.
it is a
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you because I don't want to make a mistake, but if you were to email Mike Lynch,
Yeah,
he
we'd
would
be happy to
he
tell
could
you.
have it.
Maybe that's the easier way to do it.
There's
Email
also,
him.
there's also
Okay,
a
thank you.
process for projects that can be reimbursed for some percentage through the state, and there's a very specific process they have to go through for that, and you can explain that.
There was a presentation at the last meeting about things that might be done and what the grant process might be if, they may stop doing the grants at the state level, so that would be something worth watching. Also, I don't know if you went on the tour, you would have seen a lot of displays of the air conditioning, ventilation at homes.
I think the meeting that we had, that second meeting with the Board of Ed, I think answered most of the question on that, the whole discussion that we
The
had.
ventilation thing, yeah. I think, is everybody satisfied that this has been answered? Or did you-
Yep.
Okay, any other capital questions for this? Anybody else? Anything else about, anything in general?
Yeah, I have page 107, secretaries, if they could provide to us,
Which RC?
it's actually the.
Personnel?
It's 107, it's not RC anymore, it's,
The detail.
the detail, right?
Oh, in
They
the
look
back.
at it,
Got it.
one line item throughout all the RCs. If they could provide us with, and it's possible to calculate, but if they could provide us with a page where they do secretary per employee of the RC. Because I found that, for example, middle school has about, 20 people per secretary, and high school has 40 people per secretary. There's just discrepancies, and there could be, clearly there's an explanation for it, and not all the employees are created equal, obviously, but somebody needs more attention from a secretary. But, it's been discussed and questioned by some others on the board, so it makes sense to see
Okay,
see that detail.
yeah, I see, okay. Put that in, anything else?
I question 112,
Okay,
and that's just for information, so it doesn't change anything, but it's $1,068,000 of clubs and councils. Do we have a detail of these? Maybe it doesn't belong here. I just don't know all these clubs that exist.
And they have shown that before.
They have
Yes.
shown it somewhere?
Yes.
They gave a
okay.
presentation.
They give a
Let me see
presentation.
if in the paperwork I have, I can find it,
Yes,
okay?
perfect, thank you.
That was
Okay,
done at the
anything
end of
else?
last year, Ellen had a whole list.
Anything else? Anyone else?
I think it was the same day as the athletic, I want to say. When we got that detail,
There was a lot of detail.
I
in it.
think.
Oh,
it
about
was
the
that-
clubs and councils?
Yeah, I think that was that
You
same
mean this
day.
winter, not last summer?
No, no,
This
yeah,
Yeah.
when we got those 2 extra pages, I
Yeah,
think.
okay.
one of
I
them
actually
was it.
have it in my original budget book at home.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Wonderful,
We gotta
Um,
find it and get it to you.
thank you.
I have one suggestion, just that, they talked about not knowing about the psychologists, about the need for the psychologists until this year. And I was wondering if they'd be interested in asking the administration at some point to give them a list of things of priorities among the things that didn't make the budget. I mean, so then, like the capital program, the capital budget has priority 1, 2, and 3. Well, if they could prioritize among the things that the administration did not feel was worth it to bring forward, would that be something that would at least make them aware of important stuff that was out there, rather than having to say, we were surprised that all this stuff was going on with kids? I don't know, that was something I was gonna ask about. Would it be okay with you if I did that, if we did that?
I think that's
I
interesting,
think
yeah.
that's a really good question.
It's a
Yeah.
good process question. I don't know
Yeah.
if there is
All
one.
right, I'll put that one down. Anything else? Okay. So next week, the Board of Ed is going to come, Tara Ottman and some of her colleagues, and as we said, probably some people from the administration, and we'll be able to, I'll send this to her after I go over it and let her know that some questions have been eliminated. And then if you all, you'd just be ready to have a little dialogue with them, and, you know, there can be some back and forth, and it's not a public hearing, it's, you know, there can be dialogue back and forth. So if you have any questions about the process, please let me know, okay? Anything?
I was just going to say, is everybody aware that because of the decrease in healthcare costs, that the increase year over year is now 2.03?
Yes, good point.
Yeah, the budget went down.
Yeah, because they had some positive healthcare.
So not put 2.55 or whatever the
Yeah,
budget is,
0.03.
it's 2% increase. Great.
Anything else? Okay, so we have two other items on the agenda, and one of them is that we're supposed to have a brief report from the team from Darien BYO initiative, and the other is, the second thing on the agenda, an update on bills relating to the public school regionalization proposals. And the folks from BYO are here, so I wondered if you would mind if we reordered the agenda to have the BYO people first, and the update on the bills second of the things that are left. Is that all right?
Fine for me.
Anybody? Okay, and so would the BYO people come on? You want to come up here in just about 10 minutes? I think that's what we're looking at, okay?
Okay, can you get it?
You go there, I guess, or there, whatever makes you happy.
Okay, well, yeah, that's fine, we'll go ahead.
Stand with her.
Okay, all right.
Oral support.
So I'm Juliet Kane, I'm a co-chair of BYO Darien, and my fellow co-chairs are here. Paola Sorgoni arranged this meeting, but she can't be here tonight. And the purpose is really just to really to answer any questions that you might have. You're probably familiar with the ordinance by now. But the basic thrust is that there'll be an elimination of plastic bags and non-recycled paper bags. And the effective date for that would be January 1st, 2020. And there would be, the way the ordinance is currently drafted, there would be a 10-cent charge imposed on...
Came from rules, here's the whole summary.
Yeah, I'm doing it even less than that. 10-cent charge on recycled paper bags. The committees who are in charge of Public Works, Public Health and Safety, and TGS&A, and they have crafted an exemption for small businesses. That's a business with one location, less than 10,000 square feet. They would, the effective date for those businesses would be January 1, 2021, and they would have a permanent exemption. They would never have to charge for a recycled paper bag. Apparently, there's some feeling that that's burdensome on some businesses. We viewed it as business friendly. Certainly at the public hearing last week, Palmer's was very clear. They thought it was important for them because it helps defray the cost of the bags. They're more expensive. Recycled paper is more expensive than plastic. And our view is that, and it's scientifically proved, that paper isn't a replacement for plastic. So the idea is really to promote reusable bags, to have people remember to bring their reusable bags. And by having no plastic, no non-recycled paper, and a charge on recycled paper, it's a real nudge for people to bring their own bags. The public hearing was very positive last week. Many people, well, I'd say the vast majority of people spoke in favour of the ordinance, and in particular the 10-cent charge. There's somewhat of a cloud hanging over it because the town council has written a letter saying that he thinks that the 10-cent charge is a tax. We don't believe that. The state has, yeah.
Can I just ask that question? So if for some of the people that are objecting to it because of what the town council wrote, like, okay, so we can pass it, like, as I understand it, we vote, it passes. And then what? Somebody could sue? I mean, basically, so what if the town council says this? Like, what happens? If the worst thing is that, what, we're going to go to the Supreme Court over this?
Well, let's step back a little bit because the way things stand right now, he's issued his letter. There isn't any real analysis or reasoning in that letter.
And sorry, and just like people put law, pass laws all the time that are not there to, to challenge the Constitution or whatever else. So I'm just trying to get to the...
Well, a couple of things. So he has basically, in my view anyway, assumed this is a tax. There isn't much reasoning. The Public Works Committee is going to be either meeting with him or sending a set of questions to him to drill down onto the reasoning. It's not clear to me what the reasoning could be. I've met with him. I've given him all of our analysis, which is rooted in the statute, in legal principles, and in case law. And so we should get something more back from him. But the basic concept of a tax is an amount that is levied, that is retained by the government for government services, and so we certainly don't have that here. But the state has now come up with its own proposal to eliminate plastic and non-recycled paper. It is not going to impose a tax. If it was imposed by the state, it would be a tax. It's not imposing a tax on recycled paper bags. And what it does is it allows any municipality that wants to enact, so prospectively, or enforce a law that it's already passed, an ordinance that is more restrictive than the state one, and it can do that. The state absolutely allows the municipality to do that. So, for example, there are other towns, Nor, Stamford, New Canaan, that each have these charges. The state is fully aware of that. That's why they're acting, because they've seen the towns galvanise. I look at that and I say, if the state had a problem, if they thought this was unconstitutional, they would have put something in that statute. Yeah. This is a blessing. This is the state saying, if your ordinance is more restrictive, for example, if you have a charge on recycled paper, which is more restrictive, that's just fine. So I think the state has effectively solved our issue.
I don't disagree. I guess I'm just asking though, but I guess I don't know who the town council is other than he sort of sits up there, but isn't it like you get another lawyer who can have a different opinion? Yeah, no, but I mean like his words have no force. Like it's up to the judge to decide what we're passing is unconstitutional. So we pass something and then what happens? Someone says, I'm going to go to court because this 10-cent charge is too burdensome?
Well, I think what he is saying is that the case that would be brought would be that it is unconstitutional, the town had no authority to levy this tax. And yes, it would be a nuisance, and it's always expensive to even start to discuss something that's potentially litigious. But it seems to me that there really isn't a plaintiff here. If there is a belief, which is not my belief, that there might be aggrieved small businesses here, I think they've been taken care of. It's hard for me to see what the grievance is if you're being told by the government, you should charge for this. There's no embarrassment. It's completely objective. You can say, the government made me do it. I'm sorry, I have to charge you 10 cents for this bag for your $40,000 diamond ring. I'm really sorry, but that's the way it is. It's not me being cheap. And I think that takes away all of the embarrassment. I don't think that that's in any ways something that a small business needs to be protected from, but other people disagree. So I think that the lawsuit, I don't think would be an aggrieved small business. I think it would be someone who's saying, town just doesn't have the authority to do that. And for all the reasons that I'm stating, first of all, it's inconceivable to me that this is a tax. And secondly, now the state is effectively blessing it. I think anybody who tried to bring a lawsuit would be bonkers.
Locked out of town.
So anyway, I don't know if you all have questions or if you want to
I have
speak.
a question.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if you didn't have the 10 cents in the...
I think it would be, for example, business as usual. You go to Trader Joe's and they're busy double bagging everything in paper.
Makes me crazy.
The same at Whole Foods. And I think it's human nature. Look, if I don't have to pay for it, well, I'll take it. It's just free. And, I forgot my bags, doesn't matter, they'll give me paper. Meanwhile, all this stuff piles up in your garage or wherever. And it's going to go either to recycling, and right now, the market for recycling is completely tanking, and there's a distinct possibility that the town, instead of getting paid for its recycling, will soon be having to pay for it. If it goes into the trash, that adds, it's heavy. Paper's very heavy when it's wet. It will add to the tonnage that's hauled away that we pay for to go to be burned in Bridgeport. So.
But in addition, the manufacture of paper bags is equally bad for the environment. All the acids
It's worse than the plastic.
It's as bad or worse than plastic. Plastic lasts for 500 years, but all of the acids and chemicals that go into creating that paper bag are also bad. So really the 10-cent charge is about changing our behavior.
Right.
We have become so focused on single use in our society. We need to teach everybody, especially our children, that single use items are damaging the planet irrevocably.
So what about the plastic containers? Like, I literally just bought Brussels sprouts from Palmer's.
Yes.
And they're in this thick, heavy plastic
Right.
container. It's ridiculous.
Right.
And then
Palmer's
what
does
about,
offer you a tin foil alternative.
but it was already packaged in that, and they would
Oh,
never
okay.
use it.
Well,
Again,
I
it
mean,
would be garbage.
I take my own bags for the loose vegetables.
They weren't loose. They
No,
were
no,
already packaged.
but, so, I hate to promote Whole Foods, but if you happen to go there, they've got bag things and then they've got some loose sprouts as well. So I would, just as a matter of principle now, because I know too much, it's frightening.
Well, then
I will take a bag and I will gather the loose things, and I just basically say, I'm not going to buy anything in plastic. If everybody does that, it sends a message ultimately to the industry. But yeah, you're right. We're just a grassroots organisation doing what we can, local level, to try to train people, help people think differently and not take that stuff. But it's there. It's on. We're awash with it, and so it's very easy. It takes a conscious decision and somewhat of a change in diet in order to take the things that aren't in plastic.
Well, Trader Joe's is promised that it's going to
Yeah.
really reduce the plastic that they're
Yes.
using. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't part of the reason for the 10-cent charge to the consumer that some of the smaller grocery stores and those types of stores don't want to have to pay that themselves?
Correct.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's, in other words, it would be too much of a burden for
Yes.
the family business type business.
They're going to make money.
No,
Do the math. Yes, they will.
I've
Well,
heard the paper bags cost 13 cents and we're costing them 10
Paperbacks cost
cents.
more.
14.
So it's a question of their purchasing power, because there are a number of different businesses that offer recycled paper, and depending on your relationship. I know one of the businesses, she was telling me her numbers. I thought she might make a profit on it, but I don't know. It wasn't intended for people to make money off the consumer. It was meant to sort of subsidize, if you like.
Right, to subsidize them.
Yeah,
So they're
yeah.
not.
So
but-
for us, it was when we did our research, thought this was the best solution. It was primarily, as Lucia said, an environmental reason. We wanted to not have paper replace plastic, and then in addition, it helped. We thought it would help the smaller retailers manage the additional costs.
I had someone try to convince me that all we had to do was pass an ordinance that said you should all use reusable bags, but we shouldn't charge for
Yeah,
anything.
They won't stick.
No, we've had enough experience in Europe and here,
Yes.
right? That
To your point about the Brussels sprouts, just FYI, the state, the thing that's on the floor of the state right now also addresses those plastic containers and will outlaw them if that bill gets passed. So,
Because
in
I think
some
that's
ways,
a bigger problem. That's
yeah,
why
yeah,
was
I agree.
asking.
In some ways, what's on the floor right now at the state level is more severe, if that's the word you want to use, because it does encompass other plastic items. The only thing we're trying to do here is take this one baby step with takeout bags. First the plastic bags and then the reusable bag charge to encourage people to bring their reusable bags to the stores.
We wouldn't be opposed to adding them.
Right.
But
Straws, I mean, the video with this turtle and the straw is horrible.
Okay, well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming.
Can I just say one thing? I just want to thank you all for your service. You're here tonight as volunteers.
Well, that's very nice.
It's huge, it's huge. And we all have our different passions and what is important to us. And clearly, this is important to us, BYO, Darien. And we're so thankful that you're listening to us tonight, and hope that you'll read up on what we're working on and be able to vote on that when the time comes.
Well,
And
thank you for saying that. That's
Yes,
very nice.
thank you very much.
And thank you for your service.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the last thing that we have to discuss, some of you asked to have an update about the proposals for school regionalization that have come up in Hartford recently. And one of the sources of information that I found helpful is the Connecticut Mirror. And you can look at it online. If you want me to send you the link, I can. It usually presents both sides and pretty well, and it comes out daily. I want, this to be a discussion for everybody to chime in. What I've learned is that the bill that was proposed by Governor Lamont passed the Education Committee, but it eliminated the proposal that towns chip in on the teacher pension. That was something that was going to be part of that, and that part was eliminated. Also, it removed the references to redistricting and consolidation. It set up a commission instead that's empowered to make recommendations.
But only recommendations.
Be an advisory committee, yeah. Sharing would be, town sharing of services with other towns would be voluntary. It eliminates the punitive type measures. There is still some concern among folks on these committees. The vote on one of the bills was 20 to 17 with 2 absences. The other was 22 yes, 13 no, and 2 absent. So there are people who in the legislature who do not support these wholeheartedly. There is some concern about the expenses involved with the commission, with creating the commission. It's going to cost more than $1 million. And also for having this commission, yeah.
They're going to do a study.
Yeah, to do
another
a study.
Well, if we're paying $1 million, do I have to have regionalization? I mean, that seems like
Well, they'll have the study, and the study will be biased towards it.
Well,
That's where your $1 million is going to go.
I think it would be worth saying that
You'll be retired in Florida.
I hope.
Probably. But it's important
not
to
Florida.
keep watching this and not to think, oh yeah, that was last year's problem, let it go.
Oh, it's not. If there's a study, it's coming back.
It's going to come back, so it's important to continue to watch it and to know the legislator that represents us here, wherever you live. There is some concern about the ECS money, which Darien does not get very much of it, but there was a proposal by the Malloy administration to have it sort of phased out of affluent towns over 10 years, and this will speed that up. If anybody else would like to chime in about anything that they've read, I know some people here have been to Hartford to some of the hearings, and we'd be happy to hear from you if you would like to.
Well, neither the Looney bill or the Duff bill, so the town residents of 40,000 or less, or the school districts of 2,000 students or less, neither of those bills got out of committee. And the governor's bill did get out of committee with rewritten. So
Yes.
it's now 8 pages
yeah.
long. It doesn't use the word redistricting.
Right.
It's a commission.
And it's a study bill.
It's a study bill,
Study.
right.
Just as observation though, there's so many ways that districts can cooperate. And to encourage that, reward it, not insist upon it, roll it out, don't, hack it out. And I really think that would be a viable way of going, and I hope people will do that. I can think of 3 or 4 things we could do with our neighbors. We could do staff development in some kind of
Curriculum
interesting way
supervision.
and invite people in. Think about it for a minute. You can get some kind of cool something happening, and so there's things that could happen. And I just hope people don't go black and white on this one. I think there's.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's something worth to be looked at some of those smaller districts. I mean, there was one girl who spoke in the public hearing who, and I laughed. I heard the term the quiet corner so much.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's the quiet corner. Apparently they've been very quiet. It was interesting because she said, I graduated high school with 74 people at a public school, and then she goes, and then I went to UConn. And she goes, it was eye-opening for me. And she talked about how her high school didn't have, athletics was difficult for them. Like they just didn't have the opportunities that a Darien would have, simply just not because of money, but because of numbers. And I thought that was an interesting thing to hear.
There's also a report that was done by the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, which was written, I guess, in the fall, and it does, I think it's called Pros, Cons, and Surprises, and it does present both sides of regionalization concept, the concept of regionalization. It doesn't address this particular issue, but it looks at plans that have been in place in other places. So that's another thing if you'd like to read that. I don't think the RTM has any plans to do anything, write letters or anything like that, unless individuals want to do that. But some folks on this committee did ask for an update, and I think this pretty much provides a fairly simple update. If you have questions, please let me know.
I have one more observation. You have done a superb job keeping us all informed, and I want to thank you for that.
That's very nice, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Jen?
If you
No,
would
really.
indulge me for a moment.
Sure.
Regarding the teacher pension sharing.
Okay.
There's a significant amount of thought amongst legislators that the teacher pension sharing concept and bill will move to a different committee, finance or appropriations.
Okay.
Because it's really a financial matter, so that's why education didn't vote on it.
Okay.
So it's still, the concept is still alive. And I went up to Hartford last Friday to attend the legislative session put on by Bob Duff and a couple other folks. And they're committed to this idea of school consolidations, service consolidations, administrative consolidations primarily. And they talked a lot specifically about sharing of superintendents. And try and limit the overhead costs, which I heard some questions tonight about overhead costs. So I wondered if this committee had spoken to the Board of Ed at all about, we're in the middle of a superintendent search right now. I don't imagine that that's a concept that would be embraced at all by our district, but didn't know if that question had been asked, if there was any thought given to the sharing of a superintendent. So I just throw that out as.
I think we've asked them to share more resources with the town.
Which
Start with the town.
you're not gonna get any.
But we can't even get
Yeah.
the board to share with the town enough.
You'll
so-
get no argument from me on that.
And I think what I've heard at all the public hearings I've gone to lately regard to shared services is that we do a lot of that, but then there are a lot of legal barriers to doing more. So, a lot of people from different towns are saying, hey, we're totally on board with that. Let us do it, but you've got to make it easier for us, because right now, the way the statutes are, we can't.
Well, that's one of the things the study is.
And that was brought up by some of the people who went to the hearing on March 1st, that there were barriers legally for some of the people towns that really wanted to do this. But to answer the question about the superintendent, I would assume that, it's an interesting idea, but there's a shortage of people who want these jobs. So that may be something that comes up too. No, it's hard to find people who work here.
Yeah.
But it's a great question whether the Board of Education actually considers it, who considers any shared services with other, or have they thought about it? Have they approached New Canaan? Has there been any program? Is it even allowed legally? I don't even know.
I remember they talked about it
Can
from
we-
Fitch, the superintendent talked about it from Fitch. like,
They did.
Kind of being able to bring in other students.
They did.
Right, they did.
That was one of
But then New
the.
Canaan started their own alternative high school.
Correct.
There are towns that have separate boards of ed, but a common superintendent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Reading Region 9, I know that.
So Region 9, it's interesting, they have a board of ed, they have two boards of ed for their elementary, so like Reading and then Easton.
Yeah.
Then there's another board of ed for the high school, Joel Barlow, but
Yeah.
there's one superintendent overseeing
All of
those
it.
boards.
Right.
So they have lots of board members, but only
Yeah,
one.
but who aren't paid, so who cares?
Right, they're underpaid. Okay. Oh, another thing, yes, go ahead.
I just have a question for Jamie. How likely, after going to that meeting, do you think it is that we're going to get stuck with the teacher pensions?
It's hard to say. I think anything is likely. There's another bill that's going to dedicate the lottery proceeds to the teacher pension. But it's really, we have to follow it now in the Finance or Appropriations Committee to be able to see.
So it's not gone? Not even
Nothing is
close?
gone. None of the concepts, even the Duff and Looney bills, although they themselves didn't move forward, clearly the concept of regionalism and now it's not called redistricting or district consolidations. Those concepts are very much alive and we should be mindful of that.
And what would that do to our taxes if we are responsible for that money?
Is it $3 million a year? What's the?
I think John
What's the-
Zabradsky had a comment on it.
Yeah, I forgot the number. Does anybody know?
Yeah.
The number for what?
For
Teacher
what
pensions.
Hartford
It's
sent to
about
us for
$4 or
teachers'
$5
pension.
million.
4 to 5.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
3. 4 to
And
5.
that's if
And they
it's
say
the
what will be like the
25%.
meal too. He
Yes.
mentioned it, in the meeting.
But I think there
Yeah.
was some interest in sending a separate tax bill if that happens,
Yeah.
as opposed to adding it into
Yes,
what we already know about.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Jamie Stevenson or for anyone else? Okay, but I think it's really important to keep watching this, because as Jamie said, you know, some aspects of these bills can come back in, you know, implementer bills and stuff that happens at the last minute. So if the representatives know how you feel, that may influence them in some way. The last thing I wanted to mention is the tour of the Fitch Academy that's happening
Yeah.
on Thursday, day after tomorrow. No, Thursday, 2 days after tomorrow, and it's at 7 a.m. And it's important to be there on time because the students come into the school at about 7:20, and you must be gone by then. The tour is over by then, because that would ensure privacy for the students. So if you want to come, it might be a good idea to let me or Tara Outman know, and then, you know, you can see what the facility looks like. Any questions or comments?
I just want to say one more comment. If you, regarding the regionalization, all that stuff, I found that every interaction I've had with our representatives, all of them, have been very engaging. They have come back to me, surprisingly.
Which ones?
All of them. Every
They
side
hold a
of the.
public hearing in town.
Yes, that
Oh,
too.
yeah.
But I sent emails and I got replies to my
Yep.
emails, and I
That's
sent
good.
emails back and they replied back to me. So feel, you know,
Reach out to
encouraged, or, you know, yes,
Ask.
to speak up. I think it's worthy to speak up. We're here, it's our town, it's our kids, it's our government, so participate.
And there's one tomorrow night in Stanford, with
Yeah.
Carlo Leone
Yes.
and Matt Blumenthal.
Yeah.
Library.
It's one of the Stanford libraries.
At the Ferguson, or is that different?
No, it's,
Harry Bennett.
Turner River?
yeah, Turner River.
Oh,
Is
Turner
that what it
River,
is?
right.
The one-
Okay.
Yeah, the one up, Camp Down.
And there's no Board of Ed meeting tomorrow night, is that right? I didn't see it, but.
There was one last week, so I don't.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there shouldn't be.
No, there isn't, yeah.
I actually think tomorrow night's meeting would be interesting because I think I asked Matt Blumenthal, what are you hearing from your Stanford constituents? And he's like,
He said
nothing.
nothing.
Stanford is very big.
Yeah.
I know, they're like, we don't care.
In fact, Fairfield-
No, and I
That's
talked to
part of the
people from
problem.
Fairfield, and they.
Yeah, Fairfield.
Yeah,
Yeah.
School in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll
No
see you all
parent
next week.
involvement.
Thank you for coming, thank you for all the work. And if you were supposed to send me an email with a clarified statement about the question, please don't forget to do it. Okay?
Clara, what room will we be in next week?
I'll let you know. I think it's
It
up
says
here.
auditorium.
Oh, is it on your, okay, all right. Okay, yeah, that's right. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. I will be getting some post-it below, so I will come around